Hello, I'm assuming that you've already seen my previous Photoshop instructional video about the basic setup of Photoshop. Assuming that you've opened up Photoshop and you have things on their basic settings, we can get started now and create a specific web graphic, a very common one called that we use, which is a banner. The way we're going to start is File, New, and in pixels. I'm going to recommend 500 by pixels by 100 pixels as a fairly good size for a banner. Always 72 resolution, and mode should be RGB. I like to start with white background. Click OK, and here's your image. I like to maximize it. I always try to look at my graphics at 100% so that I can see what's going on in real size. And I also like to always have my rulers showing so I can get various measurements if I need them. And we measure in pixels usually. First step is to set a foreground color. And all you'll do is click right here. I like to use only web colors because then you know that every machine in the world is going to be able to display that color. And I am going to choose a dark red color. And the color, by the way, I like to make a note of what colors I'm using. And we generally make a note of their hexadecimal number so that I can find that color exactly very easily in the future. In this case, the color is 660000. Click OK. Set up a background color, and I'll click this background tile. And again, only web colors. I'll pick a goldish color, and the color that I'm picking, I'll make a note of. It's for hexadecimal number, FFCC66. Click OK. Now, on your toolbar, you may have to change the paint bucket tool by holding the left mouse down and swapping it with the gradient tool. Whenever you pick a tool, all of the options are at the top of the screen. And for this gradient tool, I'm going to go with the specific gradient called foreground to background. Normal mode, opacity 100%. And I leave basically the settings exactly the way they are at first until I really get used to things, and then I'll experiment a little bit. Leave the settings exactly where they are, and simply left mouse click drag a diagonal line from the lower left to the upper right corners. And you get something like that, which is kind of a cool effect. And the next thing I'm going to do is add an effect to this background. I'll go Filter, Render, Lens Flare. Whenever I pick tools, I'll just go with the standard settings until I get used to it, and then I'll have time, I'll experiment a little. Click OK. So voila, we've kind of changed our background a little bit. Let's add another texture or effect to the background. So I'll choose Filter, Texture, and Texturizer. And in this case, I'm going to pick Sandstone. Leave the settings where they are. Click OK. Not bad. Now let's add a new layer. And the way to do that is in the Layers palette. Just click this little drop-down arrow and click on New Layer. Click OK. And in the new layer, click the Type tool. And again, whenever you pick a tool, the settings for the tool are up at the top. I'm going to go with Impact Font. And for point size, I'm going to go with 72 point. Actually, I want it larger than 72 point. So I'm going to just type in 100 point. For alignment, I'll use left align, and for a color, I'll use this dark color here. Draw a large square box and type in my banner. And now hit the Move tool, which is right over here on your toolbar. By the way, whenever you put your mouse over a tool, the words will pop up what it is. I'm going to hit the Move tool, and I'm going to move the banner a little bit, drag it over towards the center, and I might hit the arrow keys a little bit on my keyboard to fine-tune it. Cool. Now the next thing we're going to do is on that layer, let's reduce the opacity by dragging the opacity down a little bit. So I'll drag it down just a little bit here. I'm going to make it about 75%. It doesn't have to be exact, and by the way, you can always change it later. And now I'll add a new layer, and when I click new layer, it always adds a layer above the layer that's currently highlighted. I like to add layers at the very top. I'll click OK. I'll hit the type tool. This will be a new layer, so I'll choose impact font, not impact, sorry, Arial font. And for font size, I'm going to make it 18 point, and I'll make it a brighter color. I'm going to go with this grayish color, and I'll draw a little box, and I'll type in some words. An example of a web graphic. And now hit the move tool and move that wherever it looks like it'll work on your graphic. I'm actually putting it right on top of the words, and I'm just trying to be artistic here a little bit and try to get something happening that's just about right. Actually, kind of like that is good, I think, for me. Now I'm going to do a little bit of work on this layer called an example of web graphic, of a web graphic. And what I'll do is go layer, layer style, and I'll use outer glow. And leave the settings where they are for now. Click OK, and there you have a banner. Now you can add more and more elements as you wish. That's good enough for me. Probably on your video this doesn't show up well, but I can assure you that on my screen it's very readable and looks pretty good. Okay, so we're done with that. The next thing is File, Save As. Save it in the appropriate folder, and always save it with a specific name. I'll call it banner, and save it as a Photoshop file. Once you're done saving that, and then you'd click save. And once you're done saving that, the next thing is you need to save it for the web. File, Save for Web. And in this case, look at here. If I move with JPEGs, I would recommend GIF or JPEGs. If I go with a GIF setting, the image looks great, but the file size is about 30K for me. You normally don't want a web graphic to be larger than 15K. So I'm going to recommend, in this case, trying JPEGs. And if I go with JPEG high quality, it's 18K. So it's still a little large, but it is a lot smaller. Now let's try JPEG medium quality. Medium quality looks great. It's only 10K. Looks okay for me, so I think that's what I'll use. And then you'd click save, and you'll save it as a JPEG, usually in the same folder, an images folder inside your web project. That's about it. Of course, the banner size, you can make a banner any size you want. Your web page can have more than one banner. Banners can be virtually any dimensions that'll work for you. I think this is a pretty good way to start out. All right, thank you. Hope I'll see you again. I hope you'll tune in to more of these instructional videos as I publish them. Thanks again.